Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to one of RVN's still newer-ish television shows, What the Why with Barbara Ann. If you haven't seen us before, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Maybe you feel sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or maybe you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck, whether that's in your personal life or your business or corporation or even your career. One thing that all of our guests, all of our diverse guests have in common with you is that they felt similarly at some point in their life and they decided to change. And today's guest is no exception to that. Our guest today is Anita Grace Brown. Anita is author of Kamikaze Yogi, which is available on Amazon and through other outlets. She's a yoga instructor and life coach at Groovology. And Anita describes how she helps people as life coaching for those focused on holistic wellness grounded in faith. Faith is a huge part of Anita's life. Her clients tend to seek her out because they are tired of mediocrity and ready to get their groove back. Anita assists them in unearthing their innate courage and lust for life by giving them her full attention. During their time with her, Anita's clients can be certain there is no one else competing for her thoughts. She is focused entirely, 100% on them. Anita knows of which she practices. She describes herself as someone who is not the same person she was a decade ago or even a few years ago. Her journey helped her heal from PTSD and transform her ADHD neurodivergence into a superpower of intuition. Anita has innovated her own model of coaching, which includes breathing as the bridge between mind and heart, engaging in wholeness to achieve results rooted in the highest love consciousness. Anita's been featured on YouTube. She had a podcast on Apple Podcasts titled It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere for nearly 100 episodes, and they are still available if you want to go and subscribe and watch them. Anita is also a poet at Women's Spiritual Poetry. She studied yoga at Beyond Asana and has been serving as an instructor for 15 plus years. She also studied finance at the University of Delaware. I'm really excited to have her. We participated in training together at one point. So without further ado, please welcome Anita Grace Brown. So, yay.
Thank you, Barbara Ann.
Thank you for being here. So, you know the drill. After I went through all of that, I don't imagine, although it's possible, that little Anita, when you were growing up, really thought that you would become an author and a podcaster and all these other things that you've done over the course of even before writing your book, The Kamikaze Yogi, and since. So what did little Anita want to be when she grew up?
So anybody that's listening, if you have anything like CPTSD, it impacts memory and it impacts your experiences from childhood kind of being stuck. So when I contemplated that you were going to ask me that question, my first reaction was like, I have no idea.
And I've had other guests that have said that too, and that's
sure.
Okay.
But then, so your inner child is always right there. So all you need to do is pause, tap in, kind of prayerfully reconnect with yourself. And I thought of myself as a teenager, as a cheerleader, that I believe she wanted to be an actress or a dancer.
Okay.
And I think yoga is very similar to both of those in many ways.
It serves a similar purpose and stimulates some of the same mental pathways.
For sure.
Which is awesome. And so how did you find your path? Well, actually, before I ask that question, for those who may not know, what is CPTSD?
So it's probably more common than you think. You've heard the word trauma, and we say little t or big T. Big T is when something really dramatic and maybe terrifying happens to you in your life. We think of war veterans.
Yeah.
CPTSD is when all the little t traumas from neglect, abuse, and even smaller things that most people don't think are so impactful to the nervous system. Basically, if it's not processed, it becomes trauma. And trauma in the present lives as a charge, maybe as anxiety or depression, and you don't feel coherent in yourself. So I see it as a journey of healing back to this mind, body, spirit wholeness, so that you just relax as yourself. That's how I would best describe, instead of feeling so scattered and not sure, being present, not sure how you feel about things. I feel like I was always searching out there. And then coming back to this soul self, beyond persona.
All right. So C, PTSD is, it's almost like a boiling frog kind of, you don't even realize it because it just keeps picking at you, picking at you, picking at you until it has such a drastic effect.
Right. And I think so many people don't recognize that that might be what they're suffering from, because there's so many other labels. When you go in search of healing, the doctors are trying so hard. And this has only been in mainstream maybe 10 years. No one ever used that term back in my 40s, over 10, 15 years ago. It was more like, well, you present almost like bipolar at times. You present just like lost, like you're directionless, and your memory is suffering. So all these different symptoms, and then in my body, it was chronic irritable bowel, it was sleeplessness, major moodiness.
Which is that mind-body health connection and spirit. So it's kind of actually does dovetail right into my next question, which was, how did you get to where you are now in terms of your journey and making the changes that you realized needed to be made to get healthy?
Yeah. You have to be really honest with yourself, which is so painful. So I feel like if you have a yoga journey, or I would say anything where you're kind of forced to face yourself, you could call it face your demons, your shadow side, you realize you don't really, that it's hard to do, you don't really want to take a look. So that's where the faith comes in, because this relationship with God, with Jesus, and in my case in particular, that love is always there. So it's this encouragement, just take a peek, and this relationship with God unfolds as to the why. What's underneath your behavior? What's underneath the desire to drink, the desire to numb, the desire to shop? All these patterns that we're not proud of, but that we're human, and we're doing the best we can, but we recognize we need to change.
And you're right, they're all things that are external to us. And people are seeking external answers to things that can only be dealt with from within, and you've figured that out and specialize in that now, which is one of the things that led to your book. So tell us about, you can show everybody the book, but please tell us about Kamikaze Yogi.
So the subtitle is Christ, Yoga, and the Courage to Emerge. So that's my hope for readers, is that they find the courage to emerge, to be themselves, back to that description of who are you? And who are you beyond your job, your labels as wife, mother? Who are you at a deeper essence? And most of the time, that's really hard to dig deep enough to sense who you are after you peel away these, like you said, external ways of operating in the world. So the yoga practice, and why it's accessible in a book, is because I made it so simple. Just remember to breathe, journal, stretch your spine, stand upright, your posture matters. And so if you can think of the yoga as literally just you operating mind, body, spirit more of the time. More of the time you feel whole versus that scattered, rushing, oh, why did I say that, questioning, doubting yourself. More of the time you're like, okay, this feels natural.
Now, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there when you're writing a book. How did you find the strength to I don't like the term fear, but basically, how did you find the courage to say, okay, I'm going to write a book, and then a lot of people don't understand what the real meaning of kamikaze means. And you made a deliberate choice in terms of calling it kamikaze yogi. So let's start with the first part of that. How did you find the courage to do this in terms of actually the book itself?
Faith,
Okay.
staying close to what's relevant in the world right now, mental health.
Yes.
So my story is through my mental unwellness, my physical unwellness. So back to giving people hope that you can take these baby steps and it will build momentum. So each practice in here, you might feel that's silly. Like I have practices with eating so that you're more present to your food and your connection to your food. And so I think that if you just notice that for a week, you'll have these new awarenesses. So to me, the bravery was incremental, and then in order to get myself to do that big push into the world, I would make myself do something brave every day.
I love that.
And some days that's really tiny, and some days it felt like, what am I doing? Why would I put myself out there like this? But that was my basic challenge to myself, to complete the book and put it into the world, was to do something brave every day.
All right. Now, how did you decide on the title, Kamikaze Yogi?
So years before I was just starting to write some poetry. I was in my 40s. I never thought of myself as a writer, and this poetry started to bubble up in me, and that began to be published in the world, and that built my confidence. And one day the word dropped into my spirit, and I said to my husband, I believe I'm going to write a book someday, and I know the title, Kamikaze Yogi. And he said to me, that's a terrible title, honey.
Because people don't necessarily understand what kamikaze really meant. They just associate it with, actions of World War II. But that wasn't the original intent of the word.
Correct. So thousands of years before World War II, in the East, the word meant divine wind and means divine wind or Holy Spirit. And since I discovered that, I have just gotten confirmation after confirmation that it is a beautiful redemption of a word that has very difficult connotations. The biggest confirmation you may have seen in the book is our godson Kyle passed away from a brain tumor. And during his last months, he couldn't speak anymore, and he showed me a picture that he wanted this as his final tattoo. And it was a picture of a kamikaze pilot. And I went home and I just thought, wait, he doesn't know that this is the title of my book that I literally just only wrote, 5 pages. And I started texting him, Kyle, we have this amazing connection, you and I. You want a kamikaze pilot, like, can you tell me more? But he could barely communicate. And so I would say back to him, you know you're going to die, but you know that it's almost like the kamikaze pilot. You've put on your armor, and you're going to arrive in heaven, and you're going to be somewhere eternally.
And he's going to ride the divine wind.
And he's going to ride the divine wind. Thank you for saying that. Yes. So he would just send back heart, 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 heart. So that I was like understanding what his soul was understanding.
Wow. And it totally changes the context. So believe it or not, it's already time for a break. So we are going to be back after this brief commercial break with Anita Grace Brown, the author of Kamikaze Yogi and an instructor and coach at Groovology. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann and our special guest today, Anita Grace Brown, who is the author of the Kamikaze Yogi, and she is also a yoga instructor and life coach at Groovology. And right before the break, we were talking about what the real meaning of kamikaze actually means, which is divine wind or the Holy Spirit. and how she was inspired to choose that title and even reaffirmed through other things. And so suffice to say that spirituality is a huge part, specifically your walk with God and Christ. So how do you infuse that into your yoga practice? Because there's a lot of people out there who are Christian who actually have these misconceptions that yoga and Christianity don't mix, when in reality they're very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, synergistic, for lack of better words.
They are. I use the word mystic sometimes. It might be on my website somewhere. People ask me, what does it mean to be a mystic? And that description changes day to day. But one I heard this week was someone who begins again.
Ah.
And guess what I say to my yoga students? Literally every few minutes, we begin again.
Yeah.
You move from posture to posture, and you have to let go of what came before and return to focus, presence, balance, strength, what's happening in the now. So to me, maybe not everybody understands Christian mysticism, but just the thought of a person of faith who tries to be so humble, like whatever I think I know, I'm going to choose to begin again. I'm going to choose to, and that's why I think the postures tie in so beautifully. Child's pose, you're on your knees. You make yourself very small. So to me, it's a return to the body, a return to grounding, settledness, and making yourself small. And then God's plan, God's will, you little by little get inklings of the next step.
And you can say, I mean, literally from a coaching perspective, you know, right now can always be the beginning of the rest of your life.
That's right.
Yeah. Someone else recently said the here and now always arrives on time, and so yes, like this conversation is the beginning of something new, even for me, and the things I get to learn talking to you and my guests. So one of the things we talked about was, you know, of course, on every journey there's a series of learnings, and my guests and you have heard me say before, you know, there's no such thing as failures. Failure is a first attempt in learning. So I'm not a big fan even of the word, but what would you say was your, whether you want to call it failure or learning opportunity, was your biggest experience?
I think that's a hugely important question, because we do want to reframe what we call failure. And when I felt called, and literally called by God, to become a yoga teacher, because I was practicing, I was teaching in my basement, I was volunteering, and I was playing very small. And people everywhere would say to me, you're really good at this, but you didn't go get the 200-hour training. What's holding you back?
Okay.
Fear. So in order to move through that fear, I called a studio beyond asana, and I said, I think I'd like to join your class, but guess what? I'm going to fail. Those words came out of my mouth.
Wow.
And 7 months later, I raised $2,500 for the programming that we were helping children in Africa with their schools, weekends and hours and hours and hours. And ultimately, I took the written exam, and my two teachers said to me, you're already a good yoga teacher and you're going to be great, but you failed the written exam.
Okay.
And I went into the bathroom, laid on the floor, and just had one of those mini breakdowns, because I saw it coming.
Yeah.
I couldn't avoid it. I don't know why I couldn't avoid it. It was just so deeply ingrained. Something in me knew, don't even try this because you will fail. But I did try it, but then I still failed. Well, thank goodness they gave me a second chance, and I failed a second time.
Okay.
And then they said, we're done with you. That was very disrespectful that you failed this exam the second time. It says a lot about their teaching, because through our course, Josephine always said, none of you will fail this.
Right.
I won't allow that.
Right.
Right. So, you know, looking back, they were very young. That was very bizarre to tell me that I was cut off. And I just literally prayed and then begged for a third chance, because something in me knew there's so much more to this than just passing. And we know writing a book, we know teaching hundreds of students, creating 100 podcasts.
And you're neurodiverse.
So you need a different style of testing. But I didn't know that back then.
Okay.
I couldn't advocate for myself. So the thing that's interesting about being neurodiverse is that when I was in traditional high school and college, I did very, very well. So I had that story that my brain worked great. Then you age decades and the condition worsens and you don't address it. And now it shows up in traditional style learning.
Yeah. And that's the other part too. Learning has changed. I mean, it's one thing to, do rote learning in a classroom. It's another thing to do learning in the environments that we have now. And a lot of them aren't conducive to people who are neurodiverse or need a different approach. And we see that in lots of different ways all the time.
Yes. When I tell this story, I want to encourage listeners to think about the stories that you tell yourself, because that third time that I had to push through and make myself, challenge myself in every way imaginable to do better, I kept coming up against stories of good enough, good enough, good enough. And I didn't believe in excellence. Well, that's part of trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma doesn't understand future and excellence. There's a big piece of it that this has to be good enough. I'm in survival.
Wow. So when you went for the third time, how did it go?
I passed. I was so proud of myself.
I knew the answer, but I mean, I just wanted everybody to hear, which is interesting because 3 is a trinity, and it is what some people call an angel number. So
I dug deep.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So believe it or not, we're at time. If someone is interested in your book, or would like to visit your website or find out more about taking classes with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Through my website, Groovology. Also, I'm on social media as Anita Grace Brown. I have a course in January on breathing that will be a week long, just 15 minutes a day. And I have another course in January where it will be community in the evening, like 3 Monday evenings. So all on Zoom. And locally, I teach that you can find my schedule on the website. And this, as you mentioned, is on Amazon, and I wanted to gift this to you. That's
thank
your
you.
copy.
So Kamikaze Yogi, the Kamikaze Yogi who teaches yoga, is available on Amazon, and you Google it, you'll find it. It comes right up. Actually, very high in the Amazon rankings.
Thank you. It's getting great reviews, which feels wonderful because it was a lot of hard work, and I'm glad people are enjoying it.
Awesome. And all right, so definitely check her out. And any parting words for anybody who's interested in learning more about getting into yoga as an instructor?
Yeah, message me, email me. I would love to answer your questions. I love to engage with people in this topic because I have been doing it so long now that I feel like I've come up against a lot of the same, it's mostly someone telling you, where did you hear that? Why is that a problem? Who told you that? So just kind of getting underneath and then checking in with yourself. What do you need? What do you want to pursue? So
awesome. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know it was a challenge with trains and things to get here. So regarding our upcoming episodes, we have some other inspiring guests coming up, including but not limited to Tom Drucker, CEO of Consultants in Corporate Innovation, and he's a specialist in psychological safety. We have Tanner Ali. She's founder and residential land steward at iLogic Sustainable Industries, otherwise known as farming. She's also a poet. And then we also have Lisa Hillerin, author and owner of Lisa Hillerin LLC. You may recall she was my very first guest on What the Why, and she's coming in to update us on her recent transitions, including her graduation with her master's degree from Southern New Hampshire University. Please believe when I say you don't want to miss what any of our upcoming guests have to say about their journeys. Also, remember to check out my appearance as a recent guest on RVN Television's own Unwinding Stress with Dr. Kevin Jarina, who was my guest last week, as well as my appearance a few months ago on Defining Moments with Her Biz's Ellen Herbert. And then one of my repeat guests, Ian Hanley, has a new show called Taliesin's Magical Tales, and you can check that out on RVN Television as well. As a reminder, What the Why airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. and Mondays at 3:30 p.m. and is available on demand through RVN Television and Roku, and coming in 2023 to additional platforms. And remember, whether you're looking to make changes in your life or career, big or small, please join us again for more inspirational and informative conversations with people like Anita, who wanted to make changes in their life and overcame whatever fears or obstacles were in their path to find their purpose and live it.